I can say with complete certainty that learning how to close online has had the biggest impact on my life out of any other skill that I could have learned. And in this video, I'm going to show you my complete journey from how I got started, the challenges, the benefits, who's it for, and overall what you can expect from learning remote closing. If you're new around here, my name is Andreas, and for the past 4 years, I've been the CEO of Python Marketing, where we specialize in helping founders step away from the daily grind of client acquisition and operations by implementing streamlined, automated systems. And just so you have a bit more background, I've always sold my digital marketing services online, so I don't have any experience with selling SaaS or selling other products or services. And I can tell you, getting off the ground, closing the first few deals was the hardest part of the entire journey. I was a complete introvert, I was super shy, and you can imagine with no track record, I was hopping onto every sales call, super nervously stuttering my words, to the point where on every call that I got, I was sweating. And this literally continued for months and even years, where I took hundreds of meetings before being able to close semi-consistently. I was super scared of rejection. Any objections that would show up, I would just kind of gloss them over. And overall, for me, it was just an accomplishment if I got through the entire sales call. It didn't matter if I didn't close the person, I was just getting the reps in. I tried so many different scripts from Alex Hormozi, from Iman, from everybody you can think of that's online. But at the end of the day, I realized that it wasn't so much about the selling script that you use, but it's much more about if the person likes and trusts you. So despite testing every single script imaginable, I got hit with a ton of no-shows. I got hit with a ton of rejections. I had to deal with disrespectful people. Anything you can think of, I went through it. But once I had the process a bit more dialed in, I was able to work from anywhere in the world, which is a big pro. And probably the biggest pro for me was that I never had to deal with selling in person. I just look at my clients who are in solar, who do a lot of door knocking, and I really could never imagine myself doing so, or being stuck in an office ringing phones all day trying to catch a couple sales. This way, I'm able to move to any country within, for example, Latin America or Southeast Asia, which has a much lower cost of living with a higher quality of life. I'm getting the best of both worlds, which of course, once you're starting out a business, you want to save as much cash as possible just to feel like you're financially safe. So just by having this strategy that I'm outlining, it gives you a lot more breathing room. Of course, I can set my own schedule if I prefer to take calls in the afternoon or in the morning, or if I just want to run through calls all day, I can just open up my calendar. And a funny thing that actually happened to me was that whenever a prospect was on a virtual call with me and they told me, we only do deals in person. And I actually went over to their location, did the whole presentation. And of course, there's always room for improvement, but I wouldn't say I bombed it or I completely gave them bad vibes, but they always ended up having the same objections. I remember with this one guy who didn't trust us over the online meeting, and I went to do the presentation in front of his whole team, and they liked it. And I even told them, you don't have to pay us anything up front. You actually pay us after you receive a couple leads. They said, all right, let's do it. And after I was driving back, I get a text message from the guy saying, hey, we got to postpone the project. Our team is really not super sure on this. Whenever you have more testimonials, send them over. So it was the exact same result that I had gotten on the sales call. I just spent a lot more time going out there, doing the presentation, and they didn't even end up closing. And that happened to me like 3 to 4 times. The people that were most nervous about the whole program not working out, in person, there wasn't much of a change in results. And as I said, there's always room for improvement. But I didn't completely bomb the presentation. It was not to that extent. So I just came to the conclusion that if they're not closing online with the packages that we're selling, which are maximum at 15K, it just doesn't make sense for me to invest my time to actually go out there and try to chase these people. It's much easier to create trust by them watching a bunch of videos like this one, looking at the other testimonials and trying out the systems by themselves, rather than having the same amount of information just said to them in person rather than online. I imagine if you're selling something over 50K, over 100K, then it makes sense to do it in person, since the time invested is really worth it. But for something under 10K, under 20K, probably you can even do 30 or 50. I haven't gotten to that point, but you can probably do so only online. You don't need to waste time driving out to people who usually will just not proceed either way. Some of the biggest challenges that I've faced in the closing journey is that number one, the ability to close is just one piece of the puzzle. As I said, it doesn't matter which script you have, or even if you're really happy on the call with good vibes. If you're working, for example, with a company and they're generating unqualified leads, there's absolutely nothing you can do to actually close those leads. Or if they don't have a budget, if they haven't been educated before hopping on the call, it's going to be a lot more of a challenge to actually convince them on the first call to go ahead and pay you then and there. For example, if you're working with a big company that has a lot of trust and they're only receiving inbound leads who are pretty much ready to go, it's going to be 10 times easier or 100 times easier being a closer for them than being a closer for a completely new company who are selling a new service, let's just say in this case. It doesn't matter how much of a good closer you are. Most of it really depends on the offer, the way the lead is being generated, the trust that is built prior to a call. Of course, you can always build your value on the call, but it's going to be, as I said, just easier going with an easier offer to sell or with a bigger company. It's also not for everyone. I personally don't like it since it's very repetitive. That same conversation that I had 1,000 times, it's going to be pretty much the same the next 1,000 or even 3,000, 10,000. It's always going to be the same people with the same challenges, and you have to position your offer in a specific way that solves it. So you can think of it as a puzzle. But once again, it's going to be something that is very repetitive. If you like speaking to people a lot, then this is something for you. For me, I personally prefer to work on systems and other parts of the business. Of course, it's very tough. You're going to deal with constant rejections every single day. Inevitably, you're going to face rude people, going to face a lot of no-shows, reschedules, people lying. There's a lot of stuff that makes it a tough position, but at the end of the day, it's worth it since you have infinite earning potential. And finally, it's time dependent. It's not like ads where you can set them up once and they're going to do all the work without you needing to actually be there. With closing, you actually have to show up and close the deals. But that's a minor con because, as I said, the earning potential, which is uncapped, and the little experience that it requires more than makes up for it. But either way, I would say it doesn't matter who you are unless you love to sell in person. I'd highly advise to learn how to sell virtually. With this one skill, you can always make sure you're going out into the market with any product, any service, and you can always financially support yourself regardless of where you are in the world. Like I said previously, you have a lot of freedom, and you can also take advantage of living in lower cost countries while earning in US dollars or euros. You can set your own schedule, and when you don't have any sales calls, you can build something on the side that might be even more automated if that's your end goal. If you really like sales, then you can always do online selling for any new company that pops up. Just make sure to set yourself up for success by selling an easier offer to sell. With that being said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.